Hello, everybody. Robin here at Toadstool Tarot. And today I'm going to respond to a hashtag by Rachele at Ascension Tarot, I believe is her channel. Let me check real quick. Sorry, Amethyst Ascension is her channel. And the challenge is called hashtag Real Tarot Readers. And these are the prompts. There are 14 of them. 1. Do you have to know all the book meanings to be a tarot reader? If so, what book meanings? Most tarot decks come with their own little white guidebook. I find you don't need to know the readings, all the readings of the little white book. When I first started tarot, I tackled the Rider-Waite-Smith Yellow Box Tarot, and Arthur Waite's meanings in the little white book utterly confused me. There were keywords that seemed to contradict one another, and I was very frustrated by it. I did read somewhere in there that one key line he had was the tarot is all in the pictures, or it's all about the symbols. So with that, I tossed the book aside and just sat down and looked at the symbols. Now, in terms of being called well, she didn't say a real tarot reader in this one, but in terms of being considered a tarot reader, I think it's good to be familiar with the system. In fact, I think you need to know the tarot system in order to read tarot. You can get that by Googling online. You can buy a guidebook on reading tarot. There are hundreds of them out there, maybe even thousands. And once you know the system, you can read any tarot deck. You will find people say that there's no right or wrong way to read tarot. Well, yes and no. There is a sort of a consensus about the meanings of certain cards. So if you read a guidebook and inform yourself, you're better informed to read tarot and thereby more qualified to do so. Number 2, can you be an intuitive who uses the tarot cards and be considered a tarot reader? Yes, you can. I would say, depending on whether you're calling, I don't know that you can call yourself a professional tarot reader. I'm not even sure you can call yourself a tarot reader, even though you're reading tarot cards. It depends on what your understanding is with the person you're reading for. I would feel perfectly confident to call myself a card reader or an image reader, maybe just not a tarot reader if I didn't know the system, even though I'm reading tarot cards. Number 3, do you have to be reading for others to be a real tarot reader? No. You can study for years and years. It's a lifelong learning process, and the more you know, the more it enhances what you do. But you can start at a very minimal level and learn to read for yourself. Number 4, do you have to be a professional reader to be considered a real tarot reader? No. You can read for yourself. You can read for your friends. Generally, professional tarot reader signifies someone who charges some sort of fee or compensation for their reading, and thereby is assumed to have training or knowledge more so than the average person. But you don't need to be a professional reader to be considered a tarot reader. Now, I would say if you're going to read and charge, that you should be up front with the person you're reading for and let them know how you read, what your background is for reading, so that they don't develop false expectations about the reading. Number 5, do you need to have a certification to be a real tarot reader? If so, who determines if you're certified? There are certain organizations, clubs, whatever, who have established criteria for certifying, and it may give some validity or weight or impress people if you are certified. But everybody has different degrees of what they require for certification. And even if you have a certification, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be a good tarot reader. There's more to tarot reading than simply the knowledge. Number 6, do you need to know the Golden Dawn symbolism or astrology or a Kabalistic tree to be a real tarot reader? I would say the more layers of information you have, the more it will enhance your reading, but no, those are not required. All that's required is for you to have practiced reading with a set of tarot cards to the extent that you have developed some consistency in looking at the cards, and that they are giving you results that seem to be successful. Number 7, do you have to know the history of tarot to be a real tarot reader? If so, what history? Well, tarot actually goes back quite a ways, and nobody is completely, there's not really a complete consensus on the history of tarot and its origins. So a lot of decks in their little white book will give you a brief history of tarot, but most people are not going to ask you about that or your extent of historical knowledge. And you can always refer to Google if you like to fill yourself in, or refer them to Google if they really want to know more about it. It really has no bearing that I can think of in terms of your reading, whether you know the history behind this system or not. Number 8, does having a smaller or larger collection determine if you are a better or worse real tarot reader? I don't think so. You could have one deck and have studied it for years and be a very good real tarot reader. I think if you're going to do that, it should probably be a sort of a standard tarot deck that is sort of generally acknowledged as a standard deck, say the RWS, the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. It's a language and a vocabulary that most tarot readers know, and many decks have been derived from that deck, but the images change a little bit from deck to deck, so I think it's good to know the basics of the imagery in that deck. in terms of the size of the collection. It just exposes you to more depictions of cards, and so it enhances or widens your exposure to interpretations for each of those cards as the imagery changes. So more decks could enhance or improve your readings, give it more depth, but it's not necessary. Number 9, do you have to read reversals to be considered a real tarot reader? No, I know many people that don't read reversals. I don't read reversals. Generally, I read combinations of cards in spreads, and I find that where a card is positioned in a spread amongst other cards will give you as much information as a reversal will. The relationship of its position in conjunction with the other cards will inform you in similar manner to a reversal. Number 10, do you have to use certain techniques or customs to be considered a real tarot reader? For example, be gifted your first deck, shuffle a certain way, or use certain spreads or no spreads? No. A lot of those are just a little bit of show biz flash. So it's fine if you want to develop your own rituals attached to it, but they're basically peripherals and don't have much to do with the reading of the cards, unless you determine that for you they have great significance or spiritual meaning. Number 11, do you need to read a certain way to be considered a real tarot reader? Be a psychic, read with a divine communication, higher self connection, psychological, or even predictive reader. People read different ways and they have different ideas about it. I tend to approach tarot reading from a sort of psychological point of view in terms of human behavior. I'm not a trained psychologist or psychiatrist. I am only trained in life and living and experiencing, observing human behavior and making note of it. I have no claims to be a psychic. I don't feel necessarily I'm getting information from the beyond or from guides, but I'm not opposed to that possibility. And I do find very often, curiously and entertainingly, that synchronicities will occur where cards are right on the mark in terms of what is being asked, and very detailed. So that feels like there may be intervention above and beyond a person reading images. Number 12, can you refer to your guidebook and still be considered a real tarot reader? Yes, but I would say if you have to refer to a guidebook, let it inform your reading. Don't make that the sum total reading, just reading a description out of a guidebook. The person you're reading for can do that. They can buy a copy of the deck and read the guidebook and get the same result. So you want to give more. You want to give the extent of your knowledge and also your intuition and your intention. And be a good listener when it comes to doing readings. Listen to what the querent is asking of you, what they seem to be looking for. Ask questions, interact with them if you can. Excuse me. If you're able to have a dialogue, I think that improves and expands on the accuracy of the reading and its usefulness to the querent. Number 13 is reading with playing cards, Lenormand, oracle cards, or Kipper, or any other cards besides tarot, still considered a real tarot reader. I wouldn't call it a tarot reader because tarot is a system and those are other systems. I would say you could legitimately call yourself a card reader or an image reader or just a reader, but I would probably leave the word tarot out unless you're using the tarot cards and tarot system. Number 14, what denotes a real tarot reader to you? Well, to some degree, an extent of knowledge related to or regarding the tarot system, exposure of that person to other people reading and their knowledge passed along, some extent of book reading as well as practice on their own. I might ask how long they've been reading, and the longer they've been reading, the more weight I might give to their answers. I mean, if I'm paying, say, for a professional reader and they've only been reading a week, I'll probably have less confidence in them than someone that's been reading for 20 years. That seems obvious. I also think it's important that the reader isn't a rote memory reader, that they don't just read what seems like card meanings, that they are listening to you, that there's some interaction and engagement, that there's more to reading than just reading the cards. There's a connection between you and the person you're reading for. And I think you need to develop that connection. Some people, professional readers, even seem to read as though that doesn't matter at all. It's just about the cards. I don't know. I suppose that could be valid, but I probably would rather deal with someone who also adds their own insight and intuition into a reading than just reading cards from rote memory off of a table. So anyway, these are my responses to real tarot readers, and curious as to what you think. If yours are different, feel free to tackle this this challenge and hashtag it. Tag Rachele at Amethyst Ascension so that she can see what you've come up with. And thank you, Rachele, for supplying this. And also thank you, Jason at Tarot of the Pines, where I first saw this tag. See you all soon.